Yay! Okay, I think we're live. So, hi, Playful friends. We are kicking off something that I'm super excited about. We are kicking off a string of interviews. I have put together a list of absolutely incredible women who are living alive and confident and free and who are living their passions to come talk to you about becoming more alive, confident, free in all types of ways. So, I'm on today with the amazing Christina Reinke. She is the owner, coach, and consultant with Platforms for Peace. And she helps professional women connect and communicate more effectively, both within themselves and with others, so that they can experience less conflict and a more rewarding relationships, both with themselves and with others. So, Christina, welcome. I'm so glad to have you on.
Thank you very much, Haley. Holly, sorry. I knew I was going to screw that
It's
up.
okay, it happens. And where are you coming from? Christina, where are you joining us from?
I'm joining you from Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada.
Wow,
Yeah.
awesome. So would you tell the Playful Tribe just a little bit about who you are and what you do?
So you described it actually quite well. I am a coach and I'm a consultant, and I help women with communication. And as you said, so wonderfully, that I help them with communication with themselves and then also with others. And just to live a life that has less stress, less conflict, and is more rewarding.
Yeah, and what's your background in conflict? How did you get interested in that?
So that's a great question. So my background is a bit of a long path, but I did have I have a bachelor's degree in conflict resolution, and then I have a master's in peace and conflict studies. And so those two things are kind of my education piece. And then I also was an esthetician for 7 years. I owned my own business,
Wow.
and I like to say that that combination of education and experience kind of helped me realize the importance of self-care, and then pairing that with the communication skills that I learned in my education. So, yeah.
Awesome. So when we got to talk on the phone, it was so fun. You talked a lot about internal conflict. And I think so
Mm-hmm.
often when we think about peace versus conflict, we think of external or even distant things like wars or politics. So what does internal conflict look like? And how would someone identify if that's something that they're dealing with?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, internal conflict, I often think of it, it's really saying no to yourself. So, it's
Mm,
really not placing yourself in your own shoes. We hear the saying, put yourself in someone else's shoes. And that's really a great sentiment because it helps us develop empathy and compassion for others. But often the piece that we're missing is the compassion and empathy for ourselves.
ah,
So when I think of internal conflict, I think of it as fundamentally there's that conflict within ourselves that we're really not placing ourselves in our own shoes. We're coming out place from judgment rather than compassion and kindness for ourselves.
hmm.
Yeah,
That makes a lot of sense. I think women so often to get caught up in like we're our own worst enemies. We are meaner to ourselves
absolutely.
than anyone really has ever
Absolutely.
been mean to us.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So thinking about a woman listening to this who hears that, like, oh, I am really good at putting myself in someone else's shoes, and I've never actually thought about putting myself in my own shoes. Someone who's resonating with that, what would you tell her as some of the first steps to start shifting some of those internal conflicts into a peaceful state?
Yeah, so one of the first steps I would say is for sure recognizing that you have that negative script playing in your head. Research shows that about 80% of our thoughts are negative about ourselves and about our surroundings and our situation, which is quite a large number, but maybe not so surprising, when we kind of think about what plays in our head on a daily basis. So, yeah, the first step would be recognizing that those negative tapes are playing in your head.
Mm,
Um, then the second step, and the step that I find actually the hardest myself and then my clients would find the hardest, is finding distraction free time
mm,
to think about what those scripts are saying, because it can be 20 minutes, it can be 10, it can be 30. It's however long you can get distraction free time. So time away from the phone, time away from wherever, take a bath, take a walk, the dog, do whatever you need to do to take that time away and just kind of spend some time alone with yourself, which, like I say, is hard for a lot of us to do. The third step I would say is then pay attention and get curious about what those negative scripts are saying. Two ways to think of it is negative scripts usually use minimizing words and maximizing words. So minimizing words are words like just, I'm just a homemaker. Or words like should, I should lose weight. Maximizing words are words like always. So I'll always struggle with this issue, or never, I can never overcome this. So those are the types of words to look out for. And then the fourth step is probably, I don't know if it's the most challenging skill-wise, but it's then starting to reframe those words in our head and putting them into more positive language, or just taking them out altogether. Like, I'm just a homemaker. No, you are a homemaker. Having pride and having joy in that can be a long way to reframing those messages in our head.
That makes a lot of sense. So it's really largely about self-talk and how we communicate with ourselves.
Yes, that's exactly it. Yeah. And it's so interesting because people, when they think of conflict, they don't think of the internal conflict. Like, they don't think of that self-talk. Generally, like, they kind of know, oh yeah, I have that in my head, but they don't necessarily see how it plays out in their relationships and just in their own motivation in life, and what they who they think they are and what they feel they can do.
Yeah.
Totally.
That's so interesting. That's one of the things we do in Playful Fitness. We flip the script on fitness and weight loss. So instead of like, I'm trying to lose weight so that I can be confident, it's what can we be confident in now in the process of losing weight, and how can we appreciate our bodies for the things that they're amazing at. Like, it's actually really cool that you can do a jumping jack. That's amazing. And yeah, you're 10 pounds overweight, but that's like, your body's doing something really cool. And how can we give ourselves positive messages while we work towards our goals?
Yes.
That's so cool. So one of the things, you're fine, that happens. One of the things we talked about, you help women communicate clearly and professionally, like you and I are right now, which I think is how we often think about communication. But what you're talking about mostly right now is really that internal communication. And so for a woman who is super busy and has kids and really just wants peace in this relationship, what would you say to her to encourage her to do that internal work and that internal communication, and how would it affect those external relationships and external communication?
Yeah, I think it kind of goes back to what I was saying a little bit earlier, is really prioritizing yourself with time. And I know how hard that is. Like, I know that's like the number one thing, but I think what it is sometimes is maybe there's a bit of doubt in people's mind. I guess I can just speak from my own personal experience and from the experience of some of the ladies I've worked with, that there's a lot of doubt that spending time on ourselves is actually going to pay off in the end. Like, there's still this feeling of, yeah, I know I should do that, but it'll get to it. And I think it's when I've chatted with women 20, 30 years later, 40 years later, and when they're looking back on pieces of their life when their kids were little, or, I have teenagers now, so even that's a busy phase, driving kids around to different activities. So there's always a phase that's busy, right, with something. I think the women that have looked back on their life and said, well, what would I have wished I would have done differently? It's really prioritizing time with themselves. So like I say, it doesn't even have to be really long. Like, it can just be a 30-minute chunk where you're journaling. You are really taking time for yourself, and just quiet time, distraction-free time. Because I think, there's other pieces of self-care, like going to a movie and going out with friends. Like, those are all great things to do too, and I'm not minimizing those at all, because that's a wonderful way of caring for yourself. But I think when we're starting to look at those inner scripts and what that our inner dialogue and that self-talk is saying to us, I think it's really key to be alone with ourselves. And I feel like in our society, that's something that's really missed right now, is is that alone time. Like we kind of shy away from it and we end up pushing away those uncomfortable thoughts and feeding ourselves with other things that maybe aren't making us happy or joyful.
Yeah.
Um, so I think it's really just the discipline, honestly, of saying I'm going to spend this time, and so maybe making a commitment with your partner or a friend, like a family member, to say, hey, can you give me 30 minutes? Where I'm going to just set an intention aside, and I'm going to do some journaling, or I'm going to go take a bath, and then not just checking out, in our minds, like trying to piece together, okay, well, what are some of my goals? What are some of the things that I'm looking forward to? Like, and just asking yourself some of those questions, like, who am I? What do I want? What are those scripts that are playing? Like, how am I feeling today, this week? So I'm not sure if I answered it. I know that's a bit of a long-winded question or answer, but
No, I think you're giving a ton of gold. So, going off script a little bit, can you give us a story or an example, either from your own life or a client's life, of a script that was affecting the way either you or someone you know was operating, and like how they changed that?
yeah. Oh, I can give you lots from my own life. No problem there. Yeah. So for me, I think I would say one of the earliest times that I became aware of my inner script and how negative it was when my kids were little. I had actually had, as I was saying, I had my own aesthetics business, and so from the outside looking in, people might say, "Oh, she's successful and she was able to do some things and help women in a certain way." And don't get me wrong, I loved it and I was very happy with that. But there always felt that there was a bit of a piece missing. And I kind of pushed it away for a while because my kids were little, and I felt like, well, I really don't have a lot of time to do anything else. My partner, my husband, was working a day job, and I worked in the evenings, and that worked really well for us because we didn't have to have daycare. So I kind of came up with all those excuses for myself. I'm not fully happy, but I'm not sure why. But I can't really do anything right now about it. And then I guess what then shifted for me was my husband actually decided to have a complete shift in his career. Um, he was in the financial services industry, and he went back and became an aviation mechanic. So, which is a total shift, like two totally different things, completely. And I think what it did for me is him making that decision made me start thinking, well, what could I do then? Like, what are some possibilities in my life? And thankfully, was very supportive of me, and I really did. I just started doing that internal work of what are some of the things I've loved doing in the past? How do I really want to help women? I was helping women, but I had always wanted to go back to school and get like a university degree, but I never felt smart enough. I didn't feel that I could be successful in that. And so for me, that was a huge barrier to me then um, feeling like I could do it. So I really had to wrestle with those pieces of, not feeling worthy enough. And for me, when I saw my husband doing it, and it doesn't matter who that is, I can be a friend, I can be someone you don't even know, say you see them on social media, but I just had that inspiration from him that, oh, if he could do it, well, maybe I could do it too. And I think that's a key point as well, is the internal messages that we have playing. Um, Seeing someone, a mentor or someone outside of ourselves that can kind of show us, not the path, because we all make our own path, but maybe what's possible, for our path. And I think that's what happened for me. And I'm happy to say I went back to school, I did it, and then it wasn't easy. It took me a long time, but and my daughter was in kindergarten at the time, and I just felt like, well, if not now, when? You know,
Yeah.
that was kind of the way I internalized it in the end, was, well, I better start now.
Yeah.
It doesn't get any
So
easier.
what was the script that would have stopped you? And then what did you exchange it for?
Yeah, the script was, I won't be successful. I will never be successful at this.
Mm.
Because I didn't come from, like, my family background. like I'm the first person in my family to have a master's degree. My mother was the first person in her family to actually get a university degree, and she got hers when she was 50.
Wow.
So I think that kind of was a little bit in our family, that when you're young, like, well, you're not going to need to go, or maybe you're not smart enough to go. And I really just had to, and it wasn't anything that anyone told me. It was more just something I felt,
Yeah.
that I wouldn't succeed. And quite honestly, I'm a perfectionist, so I kind of had that too, fearing of not succeeding at something. So I kind of flipped that script of, okay, I don't feel that I'm smart enough, or I'm ever going to succeed at this, but knowing that, again, taking out that word, never, I'm never going to succeed. I can succeed on my own terms. It doesn't have to be what picture of what somebody else does. I can do it for who I am and succeed at that. And it really was just reframing it in my own head, like, okay, well, let's go for it. And I think I've heard other people say, sometimes just knowing it's enough to try, and letting go of that perfectionism a little bit.
Yeah. And it's okay to try and fail and try something different the next time.
Absolutely. For me, that was very fear-inducing.
Yeah.
but there's so much joy, and that's what I love what you talk about, is the joy that's to be found, because I think there is when we can let go of some of those scripts, because they really do hold us back. Yeah.
That's so good. So just a couple minutes left. For anyone who would want to learn more, where can people find you?
So yes, so my website is platformsforpeace.ca. And you can find me there. I have a blog there. I also am on Instagram. Mostly I'm on Instagram, so it's at Platforms for Peace. But you can find me on Facebook as well, at Platforms for Peace. Yeah.
Awesome. Yay. Well, Christina, thank you so much. Playful friends, thank you so much for joining us. This is such a fun conversation. I know I've learned a bunch of stuff that I'm going to apply. So thank you, Christina.
Yeah, thank you, Hally.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm just excited to learn more. So remember, Joyfully Fit memberships, they are still a founding member price through the end of September. It's $7 a month, so don't miss that. And we're starting our newest group coaching program. We might implement some of the things we've learned from Christina in that. It starts in September. So don't miss that round. That is the best combination of personal training with the group coaching price. Check out Christina on Instagram at Platforms for Peace and her website, platformsforpeace.ca. Post any questions you have below this video, and we will share those with Christina and have her answer those. And it's just so fun for you guys to join us. So thank you, Playful friends, and we will see you next time. Mwah.